Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you very much for watching this session at Tech Bars today. In this session, by handling Line iOS app of Xcode 14, what contribution our team has done to engineers in the world, and also Apple platform and OSS contribution expertise are the ones I'd like to talk about. Through this session, I'd like to talk about what you can learn. First of all, I'd like to talk about the various issues developer experience team faced in handling Line iOS app of Xcode 14. For example, compiler or Apple platform related bugs or OS issues. And afterwards, in order to resolve those issues, what we did as a team is what I'd like to talk about. By applying this knowledge, I think that you can resolve the similar problems that global engineers are suffering from. And you can learn how you can contribute to engineers in the world. And just like us, I think you can tackle various issues regarding iOS-related OSS, and you can be a globally active engineer, which is the ultimate goal for this session. I'd like to talk about my background. In 2019, I entered Line Fukuoka as a new graduate, and in 2022, I was transferred to Line Developer Experience Team, Xcode Gen, First Lane, Swift Compiler. Those are the ones OSS contributes I have made, and I have resolved issues where global engineers are suffering. And also, I made a speech at the international conference. Just on aside, I love 2 cats, which are my family. Next, I'd like to introduce developer experience team I belong to. There is 1 Android engineer and 5 iOS engineers. And Line Mobile developer experience improvement is what we do. As a part of that, we are improving app build speed and also create a tool, and we are contributing to OSS. As an example, iOS conference held today and iOSDC Japan 2022, our team, Jang, made a presentation regarding a transition of Line iOS app builder system. And in a big app like I'm, Bazel, Xcode, build speed, and knowledge are the ones you can learn, including maintenance. This is the agenda for today. First of all, Line iOS app should support Xcode. I'd like to talk about the issues we found. Next, compiler and app-specific issue, and also how to resolve OSS issues. Lastly, through those activities, what the developer experience team has achieved and the future target is what I'd like to talk about. First of all, when we handled Xcode Beta 14, what are the issues we faced with? As for Xcode Beta, in June, WWDC 2022, that is where it was released. There were other things such as iOS 16, and the new features were announced. For example, app intents and the new widget is a feature, and also Xcode development tool update was also released. At WWDC 2022, especially, there are 2 areas for developers' experience. First of all, Swift new version 5.7 and Swift 5.7, Swift concurrency, and other features are included. And the second, Xcode 14, new version of Xcode. And for Xcode 14, build speed was improved, and new feature development for iOS 16 is available. And we, developer experience team, should incorporate those changes as quick as possible. So on the day when Xcode 14 beta was released, we verified if we can build Line iOS app. But as you know, as a common rule, when there are new raw OS and development tools. It's not easy to handle that. And for Xcode 14 beta, when we tried to build Swift 5.7, and there were new issues we faced with. And Swift 5.7 compiler bugs were there, and OSS which we used was not usable anymore. Because of those problems, Line iOS app was not built in the new environment. And how those issues are in a specific manner is what I'd like to deep dive. First of all, compiler bug. The code I'm showing is property wrapper is used by Swift 5.6. There was no problem to compile. However, with Swift 5.7, when I tried to compile this code, Swift compiler crashed, which was an issue. And including 5.7, there were issues, and the developer had to write workaround code. However, such a code is not utilizing the nature of a Swift language, so it can deteriorate the development environment. Next, I'd like to talk about the X14 beta and OSS, the combination of those two. For the development of Line iOS, project creation and deploy had to be done smoothly, and we rely on many OSS. And by Xcode 13, OSS works smoothly, but with Xcode 14 beta, it didn't work well. But iOS 16 new features were not supported with Xcode Gem, and also process automation, which is called deploy. Because of Fastlane and the Xcode 14 beta, deployment was not done, so it requires another tool. It is not practical to respond to those questions.
So then the developer experience team tried to solve the issue fundamentally. Our strength is that we have a lot of experience and knowledge to the contribution of the OSS. Using that Apple platform and also OSS, we try to contribute them. And also some contribution are well appreciated by many engineers all over the world. So I would like to share more in detail one by one. So first, as I explained before, so how to solve the compiler and Apple platform issue together with Apple. As I mentioned before, so try to use the compiler within the closure, and the compiler crashed. And so how we should address this issue together with Apple. And to solve that, first we report the issue, and also we collaborate with the engineer of the Apple and the compiler. So if it is an Xcode issue, you can actually report to Apple as a feedback. And also if it is an OSS issue which involves the Apple, you can use the Github. And in addition to that, pull requests can be used to solve the issue. So what we did, let's look at that one by one. First, let me start with the report to the Apple. So to report the Apple platform issue, we can use the feedback assistant. And in case of the OSS, using a GitHub, we can report the issue. And the feedback assistant, not only the Swift compiler, but the Xcode, iOS, and macOS Apple platform issue you can report. And the WWDC data version OS, and also the developer tool are still under the development. So compared to the regular release, there are more bugs, like I explained in the case of the compiler. So using the feedback assistant, and also we can contribute to solve the bug in the earlier stage. And also the some library of the Apple and also the Swift compilers are open source. So not only the feedback assistance, you can also use the GitHub issue to report that. So with this, you can actually directly report the issue to the Swift compiler community directly. So this is the actual reports I sent respectively. And this is the one, the actual feedback I did using the feedback assistant. So the feedback assistance, the status whether the issue is solved or not is also notified to you. And also the feedback sender, what kind of issue is actually generated. So the detailed information should be written. And also you can attach the log file. So it is possible to attach the Xcode project file. And next, let me talk about the GitHub issue report, like a feedback assistance, what kind of code has an issue and what kind of environment, detailed information should be given. And when the compiler engineer started the fix, then the pull request issued by that engineer is available. So to fix the bug, how the compiler is fixed, so such information is also available. So this kind of the feedback and report is very precious information for Apple to improve the product. And straight after the WWDC and developer tool and OS beta version released, and more bugs are found. So let's use that. Let's report that. Now I would like to talk about how to write the report more concretely. So report an issue, the code example, and also the environment information, and also the log when the problem happens, that has to be incorporated. So first, let me talk about the example of the problematic code. This one is the view controller code which crashed the compiler. This code should be written in the feedback and report. But if you write everything, there are many unnecessary contexts. So it is difficult to identify what's the issue. So irrelevant app unique business logic obfuscate this code. So for Apple and compiler engineer can identify the issue, you have to eliminate this unnecessary context. And how to do that? First, view controller is an iOS unique context. So you have to check whether it could be replaced with the pure class as much as possible. And there might be an issue made by the view controller, but you have to verify that as much as possible. In this case, the class is renamed as test. And also the view did load. This function is also iOS context. If you can remove it, you should do that. And also this one is renamed as test. Lastly, and also the app unique business logic has to be removed as much as possible. In this case, view model using code and a code to acquire other data were removed. So because they are not relevant. So now you have code focusing the issue. So let's compare before and after the code removal. Left is before the context removal, and right is the after the removal. So the right-hand side can tell having the property wrapper in the closure is the issue easily. So to tell the issue clearly to the engineer, please remove unnecessary context. And also, you have to check whether issue is reproduced with that code or not. So I talked about how to organize the code information. Next, let's look at the environment information where the code generates the issue.
Compiler information is going to be very important. You have to open terminal and the pass version option and call Swift command. You can see version information at the top. And if you need Xcode version, there is about Xcode in menu bar. You can confirm version as shown in the diagram at the bottom. In order to reproduce issue, this is the information regarding a development environment where you can have a problem. Lastly, I'd like to talk about the log. For the bug I just talked about, when compiler crashes, this is the information stack trace to be indicated in Xcode log. This is error is a compiler's issue, and the Swift compiler engineer needs to respond to it. And for stack trace information, and which portion of compiler code we have a problem needs the information for compiler engineer. Therefore, stack trace should be offered as information, or there may be unexpected compiler error compared with the expected behavior. You should offer both information, unexpected and expected behavior. By collecting those three pieces of information, you can include that in feedback report or GitHub issue. Based on the information I talked about, this is the issue I created with the actual Swift GitHub repository. First of all, the minimum code to reproduce bug is shown at the beginning. And next, what was the problem and what is the log indicated was also included as information. Lastly, Xcode, where the problem occurs and also compiler is shown. If you refer to issue template, you can see which information should be included in issue. And after reporting such information, Xcode release is going to be released by Apple, fixing that. And I'll talk about the flow. I just talked about one case study for the compiler, so there may be a difference among case studies. When you report, Apple and the compiler engineers will conduct a survey, and if it is a feedback assistant, status will be updated. And in the case of Swift, compiler developer will make a comment, and pull request is going to be opened. And after reporting, saying that it is fixed, it is made, it will be a new version with patches for 2 to 3 version later will be released for Xcode beta. There are two issues we reported. We discover issues and report, and we were able to contribute to fix the problems. And so far, I talked about how compiler and Apple platform OSS bugs can be reported. And also, open source case such as the Swift compiler, not just issues, but you can fix the problems by sending a pull request directly. In this case, we will focus on Swift compiler. Swift compiler is written in C++ language in many cases, and the deeper it gets to the fixing of a bug, you will need C++ knowledge, and also you may need a type system expertise information. And the developer experience team could not offer pull request to handle Xcode 14. And we did not send pull request direct for the Swift compiler. And this is another example which I sent a pull request directory. If there are bugs or issues, you can also send such a pull request. Next, I'd like to talk about the OSS related issue, which we faced with Xcode 14, and we fixed that. As I mentioned in the previous section, for the development of Line iOS, in order to make deployment and project management smoothly, we rely on OSS. One representative is Xcode Gen to create Xcode project and Fastlane and others for deployment automation. And Xcode 14 beta changes had a major issue, and the development experience team tackled those issues proactively. And I'd like to talk about what issues we resolved. First of all, regarding Xcode Gen, in order to utilize a new feature for iOS 16, we could not create project. For example, there is Apple Intents, newly added extension project was not produced, and therefore we could not verify the behavior of a new feature from iOS 16. We took a longer time to identify cause, but as we verified the Xcode project file, we were able to identify cause.
So let me deep dive. What was the reason of the project setting? Knowing this, I think this will helpful when you face a similar issue. And what you see here is that among the huge project file, the extension portion is extracted. The top is the notification service extension, and the bottom is the new extension portion from iOS 16. And here, the blue square, let's look at the product type setting. Existing extension designate the app extension, but the new extension from iOS 16 designate the ExtensionKit extension. What are the difference? To understand the difference, you have to know that there are several types of extension. Top app extension has existed in Xcode. Notification service extension or a share extension. So those are in the category of app extension. And bottom, ExtensionKit extension is added from Xcode 14. So this is for a limited function. App intents is in the category of the ExtensionKit extension. Normally, if you use Xcode only, you don't have to care the difference. But when you generate the project with Xcode Gen, you need to pay attention that in the beginning, we couldn't recognize the difference between the ExtensionKit extension and app extension, and we designated the app extension to generate the project. Then we couldn't verify the new feature. And also, after we realized the ExtensionKit extension, Xcode Gen did not support the ExtensionKit extension. So the developer experience team addressed this issue as a task of the Xcode 14. And the developer experience team has two Xcode Gen committers. So we can recognize how to fix the Xcode Gen. And also, there are many Xcode Gen users all over the world, and this is a very impactful feature. So this made us very highly motivated. Then, as a result, the new extension is available without any problem. And also, the team who needs this feature did the fix, and we developer experience team support that engineer. And we can cover the issue. And that engineer contributed to the two main OSs, such experience and also the achievement. And also it can we support the Xcode 14 by OSS. So this is really a meaningful activity. And the actual request is available from this URL. Let me share another OSS example. We use Fastlane, and from Xcode 14 beta, we face the bug that we cannot deploy the App Store content from the Xcode 14 beta. So when the Xcode 14 beta was released, this was registered as issue. But after 2 months, no one addressed it. Why? up until Xcode 13, to deploy to App Store Connect within the Xcode, ITMS transporter existed, and fast lane deploy function wrapped this tool and offer the deploy functionality to App Store Connect. And also, similar feature application loader exists, but Fastlane supported and also depended on ITMS transporter only. However, from Xcode 14, ITMS transporter is removed, and the Fastlane deploy function is not available. To use the deploy function, you had to use the old Xcode or have to use another app with ITMS transport. So you had to require the bigger tool, and this workaround is not practical. Then why the issue was left, we analyzed that. First of all, so we found out it wasn't clear whether Xcode 14 bug or intended change. So this is the change which is not included in the release note issued by Apple. So maybe the next beta version, ITMS transport may come back. There was an engineer who anticipated in that way. And also, whether it's Apple intention or not, no one investigated. So no fix was made. So everyone waited. Someone would investigate and fix the issue. So to leave the issue is not good situation. To solve the issue, we made some actions. First, to check whether it is intended change or not, then we can check that by sending the feedback to Apple. So like I said in the previous section, the compiler issue, sending the feedback to the Apple is very effective. Then I contacted Apple. Then we found out that that tool was removed intentionally. And also, we decided to handle the Fastlane issue as a task of the developer experience team. So this is impactful to all engineers, not only internally, but all iOS engineers all over the world. So, so this motivated and excited us to address the issue. So this is the actual pull request. As you can see, we received many reactions. So many engineers all over the world had waited for the fix. And the first main is written by Ruby, and we struggled a little bit, but thanks to the active review and advice of the Fastlane core member, so we could have a very clean code. And thanks to the collaboration of the debug, we could improve the completeness. So we could fix the issue, and so it is included into the new version of the Fastlane. And also, this is the biggest achievement of the Xcode 14 task that we have carried out. So by fixing OSS, we solved the issues faced by many engineers. And also our original mission, Line iOS app Xcode 14 support is also completed. So slightly before the Xcode 14 release, we switched the development environment completely. And also the Line iOS app 12.16.0, from that version, we switched the environment to Xcode 14 completely. So through these activities, how our activities will be leveraged in the future activity, let me cover that. So through these activities, we could verify the Line or iOS app in an earlier stage and released. And also through the contribution to the multiple OSS, we could contribute to the improvement of the engineers all over the world. So this is really honor, great honor, and also the team motivation is enhanced. So it was a really useful experience. And also through that, we could contribute to the OSS, and also we learned how to work with app platform and also OSS. So under the take ownership mindset of the line, when difficult bug occurred, we would like to fix the issue more actively. And so with the knowledge and motivation, we would like to challenge something new further from next year. So the developer experience team, throughout our work, we contribute the improvement of the developer experience. Without your challenge and activity, we cannot improve the development environment of all over the world. So I think I would like you to challenge the different issues, and I would like you to contribute to the engineers all over the world. Thank you very much for your attention. And I would like to entertain your question and feedback at the Plus Talk. Thank you. Aki-san, thank you very much. From now on, we would like to start the Plus Talk session by deep dive the subject, and we are going to entertain questions from audience as much as possible. You can post your question by clicking the question mark icon. And the questioner is Mr. Kazuhiro Kamakura from Yahoo Japan. Kamakura-san, please.
I'm supervising apps for Yahoo Japan. I'm Kamakura. Nice to see you all. So, Mr. Kamakura, what are the things you would like to know more based on this session? Thank you very much for the excellent presentation. A way to reproduce an issue is what I ask a question to other people internally, and registering issues. That is where I want to leverage. And if we cannot build with a new version, I think that is a common issue any companies experience. And information exchange can be done internally, but for external exchange, OS and issues and developer forum are available. But what are the other occasions where you can do? Yes, I think there are many ways. I'd like to talk about the common way I take. SNS, Twitter can be utilized to get the words that are associated with a bug by searching on Twitter. And I'd like to investigate if other engineers may have such an issue. And if an engineer can have an issue, I can communicate with them. And another point is that in Japan, there is a community channel, Swift community channel. Is it the Swift Discord? Using the channel, you can ask questions, and if you say it may be a bug, everybody is very kind, and everybody is willing to verify. And some suggestions are given by them. So that is an area where I can exchange opinions. It's very good. Thank you. I would like to check that. Another question I have is as follows. OS feature is getting more every year. I think I have to update the knowledge I have. And also there are many things. In order to acquire new information, what are the things you do? WWDC session is what I see by targeting at the area where I'm interested in a proactive way. And also internally in our company, WWDC is going to be emphasized. That is what I exchange information. So your company is going to be getting more momentum. That's great. Yes. A question from viewers. Xcode 14 response. How long did it take to handle that? Yes, developer experience team tackled this issue with another team. As I said earlier, Xcode 14 beta was released, and I took a lead. And I started that in June, but I think it was I can't answer in detail, but I'd like to check it how long it took. But I think it was completed by the end of the month. And when you mentioned Xcode Gen and Swift, Fastlane or Swift, C++ language knowledge is required. And language in relation to the areas where you're tackling, do you think with that knowledge you can handle? Well, as for OSS, Ruby language is required for Fastlane, and there is a variety of tools utilized for certain tools. For example, Fastlane with Ruby, but I have not written Ruby before, but I tried to contribute, and I released that code. And contributor said that it's not how Ruby should work. That's what I was told by other developers, because I was the beginner of Ruby language. So I challenged regardless of the language, and then I can follow OSS. So would you say that the contributor can organize it? Is it that internal contributor? Both internal and external contributor. It was a coincidence that one of the contributors was internal contributor. There's a heartwarming story. So there is another question from viewer. When was this team established? It was in 2020. Developer experience team was formed, and I joined 2 years later. As I said earlier, but the speed had to be improved, and it was around that time.
So other than a developer experience team, there are people who are contributing to OSS. Yes, this kind of a feature, or if there are someone who want to use the OSS, then those people contribute. So depending on the necessity, there are cases that OSS has to be used. So that everyone is committed. I understand. So my last question. So there are different kinds of OSS. So the Swift engineer is developing and submitting the issue or the pull request submission. It is not easy. So how to overcome such fear or the courage? I don't think you need to have any courage. So using that OSS, and in a high probability you will face the issue. So waiting for the solution is prepared. I think you have to work on a solution by yourself. So I think that will be much better. And also the contribution to OSS, if you do that more, and that will be the achievement and experience of the individual. So then people around you will recognize you as a contributor with a lot of experience. And so you can actually expand your network further based on that your experience. So I think you don't have to be afraid. So with courage, I think you should contribute more. Yes, that's true.